I'm Mary Burrell, a hospice survivor turned patient advocate with a story of resilience and second chances. This podcast is a space for authentic conversations about survival, hope, and rebuilding. Whether you're on a health journey, caregiving, or seeking inspiration, together we turn struggles into strengths. This podcast dives into real stories of survival and resilience, exploring life after hospice, health challenges, and caregiving. It's about using storytelling to connect, inspire, and advocate for tricuspid valve and women's heart health. Through solo episodes and interviews, it creates a supportive space for shared journeys and diverse perspectives. Our podcast is for women aged 20 to over 65, caregivers, hospice survivors, and patient advocates navigating heart valve challenges, caregiving, and resilience. It also appeals to health conscious individuals and medical professionals interested in patient stories, advocacy, and groundbreaking treatments like EVOQUE. Heart health is a critical issue for women, yet risks like tricuspid valve regurgitation disease often go unnoticed. This podcast fills a gap by raising awareness, sharing authentic patient stories, and advocating for women's heart health. With most podcast listeners seeking relatable content, it's the perfect platform to educate, inspire, and connect with women navigating health challenges and caregiving. Hope starts here. Four voices, one mission. Launches with stories of survival, advocacy, and second chances, proving that hope shines even in the darkest times. Future 30-minute episodes will explore life after hospice, caregiving, clinical trials, medical innovation, and patient advocacy, blending heartfelt stories, interviews, and actionable insights to inspire and connect. This podcast brings personal, candid stories to the forefront, spotlighting tricuspid valve regurgitation awareness and life after hospice, topics rarely addressed in mainstream media. As a survivor and a caregiver, I offer a unique, relatable perspective. Through actionable insights, advocacy, collaborations, and listener stories, it fosters community, connections, and hope. I'm seeking sponsors, partners, and advocacy groups to join me in spreading awareness about heart valve health for women, caregiving, and patient advocacy. Opportunities include sponsorship, guest appearances, and co branded campaigns to create real impact. To support the podcast, I'll incorporate sponsored content, ads, and listener contributions via platforms like Patreon, with plans for community focused merchandise in the future. This podcast is about creating a supportive space where listeners can share stories, ask questions, and connect through discussions with guest experts and building community that lifts each other up. Hope starts here. Four voices, one mission. Follow the podcast on YouTube and share it with anyone who could use a little hope and inspiration in their life. Let's start building a community together. You can email me at advocate@maryburrell.com. My website is www.maryburrell.com. And social media, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as Second Chances as Mrs. Avocado. Hope isn't just something we wait for, it's something we create. Tune into the pilot episode and hear how four voices came together with one mission to inspire, connect, show that even in the hardest times, hope is always within reach. You've just stepped into a space where real conversations about heart valve health, resilience, and advocacy comes to life. This is Heart to Heart Talk with Mary Burrell, where we speak from the heart for the heart. I'm Mary Burrell, hospice survivor, patient advocate, and heart valve warrior on a mission to amplify voices, share untold stories, and empower you to take control of your heart health. Because when it comes to your heart, knowledge isn't just power, it's survival. So grab a seat, open your heart, and let's dive in. Because every heartbeat has a story, and it's time to tell yours. Welcome to Heart Talk, where we speak from the heart for the heart. Today, we're diving into the story behind EVOQUE, the device transforming lives for patients with tricuspid valve disease. This is where we explore the human side of innovation. The tricuspid valve has long been called the forgotten valve, untreated, overlooked, but not anymore. EVOQUE is a breakthrough for patients one thought untreatable, and we're not here to talk specs. We're here to meet the people behind the revolution. Engineers don't usually take center stage. They're deep in labs, designs, testing, quietly shaping the future. But today I've brought three of them into the spotlight: Sid Vath, Katie Nicolette, and Scott Tyler, key members of the team that brought EVOQUE to life. They're not here to pitch, they're here to reflect on the grit, the setbacks, and the people they thought of while building this, and what hope looks like when it's made by hand. We dive in. Let's meet the team and hear their engineer truths, the personal lens they bring into the lab every day. Katie, let's go ahead and start with you. Will you introduce yourself and share your engineer truth?
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks for having us, Mary. Hi, I'm Katie Nicolite, Senior Director of Clinical Development here at Edwards. I have about 20 years of clinical experience, and the last 10 years really specializing in this kind of clinical engineering for transcatheter valve technology. My truth, clinical engineering is about making a profound difference for the greatest number of patients. Every valve, every procedure we design must not only function flawlessly, but also significantly improve the quality of life for the vast majority of patients, enabling them to live the most meaningful life possible.
Thank you for that, Katie. Okay, Sid, you're next up. Please introduce yourself and share your engineer truth.
I am Sid. I'm a mechanical engineer by background. I have been doing or designing implantable medical devices for the past 15 years. I was on the team that started EVOQUE. And for me, I think every day that I spend working, it goes into thinking and improvising devices that can improve patients' life and their quality of life.
Awesome. Thanks, Sid. So, Scott, you're up next, my friend. Please introduce yourself and share your engineer truth.
All right, thanks so much. I'm Scott Tyler. I'm the Director of Clinical Development at Edwards. I've got a background in bioengineering and mechanical engineering, and I've spent the last 12 years designing devices and procedures for both transcatheter repair and replacement technologies. My truth, I believe that device design and clinical practice go hand in hand. One cannot successfully exist without the other one. And each patient is truly unique, and the variation of different considerations must be taken into account in order to create a therapy capable of treating the greatest number of patients in the safest manner possible.
You guys are inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing those truths with us. Let's get into it and start with Katie. So, the valve nobody was talking about. Let's start with the hard truth. Tricuspid valve was ignored for decades, nicknamed the forgotten valve. Why was it forgotten, and what made you believe it could be finally treated?
That's a great question. I would probably have to throw myself in the camp of forgetting about the tricuspid valve in the beginning, both kind of in clinical practice and even when I was starting here at Edwards. Um, the first project I was working on was actually mitral, and clinically, well, while we're working in the hospital, a lot of times we weren't thinking about the tricuspid valve. We weren't thinking about it a lot and working on it a lot. And why that is, I don't know that I have a great answer for that. But very quickly into having time here at Edwards, we realized we can't just be thinking about aortic valves or mitral valves. That this is a holistic system, and you can't have one or two valves working properly. You need to have them all working properly. So I wasn't here too long before my interest was really spiked, peaked, you would say. And I was like, what about this other valve? And it seems like we have some devices that could work over there. And that's really, what sparked the journey, I would say.
Hopefully that happens more often than it doesn't. Sid, what about you? How would you answer that? Why was it forgotten, and what made you believe that it could finally be treated?
I think based on whatever we know or after having gone through this journey, right? I think it was forgotten because to a certain extent, I don't think there was enough know-how in terms of how critical it was. The second thing was like people just didn't know how to look at it, right? Like if you can't see the valve, so as technology progressed, right, like what Katie and everyone does on the echo tool, or like understanding echo, all of those things have played a role in eventually cracking open the tricuspid valve. And I think we started on this journey with mitral. Then we realized that, okay, while we were doing mitrals, we can see the tricuspid valve a little bit, right? And then once we realized how tricuspid looks, I think it was just, in my mind, slow evolution of understanding that has happened. Because remember, like first transcatheter valve was implanted barely, I think, 25 years ago, 25 years ago. So transcatheter valves have, it's not like they have been around for decades, right? They have just gone mainstream now in TAVR.
Wow. So basically, if you don't see it, you don't see it, you forget it's there. I mean, it's simplified, but yeah. Okay, moving right along. Scott, what about you? How would you answer it? Why was it forgotten, and what made you believe that it could finally be created?
I have a little bit of a different background than Sid and Katie. I was working on a different repair project before, and we also were focused on mitral. But then, we saw that there was a need, and it was more of a need that was coming from the clinic. I think a lot of the forgotten nature of the tricuspid valve has to do with the labs and the data that doesn't really exist. It's pretty easy to quantify the aortic and the mitral diseases using labs, imaging, like Sid was saying. But the tricuspid's a little bit more difficult. That really just makes patients feel bad, but it's just kind of overall bad. There's not really one particular data that you can point to and say, this means that they have a tricuspid issue, and that tricuspid issue will be fixed, and then that lab will get better, or that number will get better. So it's much more of like a feeling than it is a hard data point. And coming over from the repair side of things, we were seeing a lot of physicians start to use those type of devices in the tricuspid space and have success. So that sparked the interest for me, seeing that there was that clinical need. And different from the data and different from the published records, I guess, there definitely was that need that was coming from the patients in the clinic.
That need, I was one of those needy people. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the EVOQUE and you three, along with the entire team. So many people. Oh my goodness. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Moving on to my question two. Every breakthrough has an aha moment. Sometimes it starts with that gut feeling. Other times it's a test result that flips the switch. So I'd like to hear from each of you. What was your click moment with EVOQUE? And when did you realize that this wasn't just an idea, but something real that could actually change lives? Let's start with you, Katie.
Sure. I think there have been a few aha moments, and I think there's aha moments continue, honestly. I think there was an idea of let's take some of the technology we have. We know that there are other devices that seem to clinically be helping patients. Do we have technology within Edwards that could further that journey? And so, it was taking a device that we were very familiar with for the mitral side and, setting up some labs and going to talk with some physicians to see, is this even possible? Is something that we have already in our hands, something that we can use? One of the ahas, myself and Scott and another specialist were in Germany meeting with some physicians, and we were just pouring through imaging, like looking at some CTs, looking at some echoes. And as we're going through that, just there was this anatomical aha, like, hey, this could work. Like what we have in our hands right now could work. That was a pretty exciting moment. And then, I think of another time we were back in lab in Irvine. Scott and I like to joke about it, but we were like siblings in there. We were arguing every day on how to do this, and I would get angry and he would leave me alone to figure something out. He'd figure something out on the side, but we got there, and we went and we did this procedure, our very first procedure. We had some aha moments in lab, but we went and did this very first procedure, and it was going so well. We kind of stopped the procedure and looked around the room. We're like, is this it? Is this working? And those words were actually uttered, and everything worked, and it worked well. And that was like, such a monumental moment to just look around and be like, wow, this could be a thing. But of course, the clinical question remained. You can always stick some devices in people, but is it the right thing to do? And we got this from that very first patient, got some CT images back where the heart was remodeling, doing this kind of reverse remodeling and shrinking back down in size. And it felt like such a big day to see these images side by side. So those were some early ahas. Honestly, I think they continue every single day. We were doing cases yesterday and in patients I think that we would not have even considered looking at a few years ago, and like, we can't do that. And we're doing them, and it's working. There were early ahas, and I don't think we've seen the end of the ahas.
Oh, wow. That story sounds very familiar to me.
Yes, very, right?
To the point, yes. And thank you for that as well. Let's move on to Sid. What was your click moment with Evoke when you realized that this wasn't just an idea, but something real that could actually change lives?
So I think this was, I would say, in 2018. Let's say we started before we go to any humans, right? We have to go to some animals, right? And in my past life, I had not seen good animal studies. Okay? They were always very challenging. And when we went and we did evoke animals, they were perfect. So I feel like, okay, I think there is something here. Then we started doing the cases, right? What Katie was saying, and they started going really well, really, really well. I think there was the first case, I think in Germany, where the physician eventually texted us. No, he emailed us saying that the lady who got the device threw away her walking cane and just walked out of the clinic.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. Then again, then it was your case where I really felt, confident about knowing about anchoring. So there were so many moments during this whole time point, right? The trial was one thing, and then the commercial has been spectacular because, as Katie mentioned, right, we are learning so many things along as we go with this. So I think these are these are just like the ones that I really, really remember.
Wow. I got goosebumps. Changing lives. So let's go on to Scott. What do you think your click moment was with Evoke? And when did you realize that this wasn't just an idea, but something more than that that could change lives?
Sid and Katie going first, they took a lot of my answers.
You can say
No,
working with us.
but it really has been, we've been working very closely together since the initiation of this project. And there's a lot of trips to different physicians who had tried things in tricuspid, who had tried to use technologies in new ways. And so meeting with them and chatting with them, but a lot of it was done in the lab in our home office, trying to figure out what are patient anatomies that we can treat, that we should treat, which patients that we think would benefit from this procedure. And it was actually a fairly quick process, fairly quick, but very long. It was many, many long days in the lab trying to figure all of this out. And even between cases, even from when we went from our very first case to our next case to our next, we were being challenged by our physician partners every step of the way. And as soon as we would treat one patient, we'd have a good result. And they say, okay, can you guys come look at this other patient that I have? Do you think that it will help them? We've had no options for them for quite some time. Do you think this will work? And so it really just was that kind of cadence and seeing that good partnership with the physicians in the clinic, and them coming back and saying, okay, that was amazing. So excited from their case that they had just completed. Can we do this one? Can we do this one? And there was a lot of times where we were flying from Canada to Germany between cases and like screening patients, updating slides, looking at all these things, and really, really quite literally changing things on the fly or on the flight. So we could try to treat the most number of patients possible. And we really did learn as we were going along. And it was pretty incredible to see that partnership, not just us kind of pushing something, but also being pulled from those outside.
Sure. Aha moments truly does take teamwork.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. That's impressive. So let's talk about setbacks. This wasn't a smooth ride. What did it feel like to pour your heart into something, hit that wall, and then choose to go at it again? Katie?
I mean, I think setbacks are more common, more the name of the game in this space. You know, I think us sitting here getting to talk to you is not the common theme, right? I think there are hundreds, thousands of different ideas and devices and therapies that are put forward that are not successful. And we are very fortunate to, you know, be talking about this today. And we have that luxury of seeing success and getting to, you know, meet with people like you to really kind of give us this drive and this power to move forward. But the setbacks, you know, there were many, many in the beginning. There's still many, many today. But I do think that, you know, everything that's surrounding it makes this all very palatable. I think, you know, there are so many people that you won't get to talk to on a podcast that will spend their entire careers trying to make something work that maybe that device itself or that therapy itself doesn't work, but all of the work that they do also helps us, you know, drive towards things that do work. So the setbacks ironically are often teaching you more than you know all the success. So setbacks are while they're hard to swallow, they're actually a really good thing, but it can be mentally hard to push through them sometimes. Like I said, we have the luxury of seeing all the other success that kind of gives us that passion to keep moving.
Yeah, and when you do push and get to that other side, it feels so good, doesn't it, Katie?
Most definitely.
Yeah. Okay, Sid, what about you? What does it feel like to pour your heart into something, hit that wall, and then choose to try it again?
So I think for me, like, what Katie was saying, right? Like, we did not have, when we started, Evoke started on the mitral side, right? We had a lot of setbacks. And when we started on the tricuspid, it it just came together. And we were coasting, as I would say, like we were coasting till, let's say, August or September of 2019. Okay. And then there was a period in time, 3 months, I think, where, I mean, it never felt like stressed work because we just were extremely motivated. We mean these other two individuals that I'm referring to. Because there was a point from October to December of 2019 where we literally did so much of work. I think my wife was like, you are spending more time with your colleagues than with me. And it was really a thing. For that 3 months, we did so, meaning like, and it was all like understanding basically, right? Because nobody had a clue, meaning we knew something was off, but we just did not have those markers with us. So there were many things that we did during those 3 months. And I think when you talk about setbacks, right, I like, we was just aware, that yes, setbacks will happen when you're introducing the therapy, but I think they were just sheerly overcome by hard work and the team having the exact same intent, which was to learn and go back and again treat more patients.
Wow. So let's move on to Scott. What do you think? Did it feel like to pour your heart into something, hit a wall, but then still choose to try it again?
So like Sid and Katie are saying, we especially as you're introducing a new therapy or trying to introduce a new therapy, there's a lot of learnings, and hopefully the learnings kind of taper off as you get more experience. But each of those learnings really do come from some kind of a setback. Some are more extreme than others. Some you don't see until you get a fair bit of information and you can kind of pool data and you can see commonalities. But I think the main thing that's kind of kept me going through this, at least, is, whenever we have found or experienced a setback or found an issue, it's not, it's very quickly turns from, oh no, there's this issue, we have identified it, to how do we avoid this in the future? And I think that's the only way that I've been able to kind of get past those or get through those is, identifying those issues, but then really take them as a challenge and as a learning so that you can do better next time. And I often say, it's while it's not ideal, it's okay to have something go wrong, but once you're aware of it, as long as it doesn't happen again, or as long as you make adjustments to minimize the chance of that happening, then that's how you move forward, and that's how you can get a therapy to really be able to treat the masses and be ideal for the most number of patients.
That makes sense. Learn from the setback and push forward with what you learned from it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be better on the other side.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Sid, Katie, and Scott, thanks so much. You didn't just help fix my heart. You gave me a purpose I never saw coming. Thank you for believing in what was possible. I'm here because of that. I'm forever grateful.
As are we.
We're incredibly thankful for this.
Yes, of course. To everyone listening, innovation isn't just about breakthroughs or big wins. It's also about the people behind the work, the ones who care deeply, take risks, and keep showing up even when it's hard. We hope today sparked a deeper connection to what's possible. If something in this episode struck a chord, share it, start a conversation. Until next time, this Heart to Heart Talk with Mary Burrell, where we speak from the heart for the heart. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of Heart to Heart Talk with Mary Burrell, where we speak from the heart for the heart. If today's conversation sparked something in you, a question, a revelation, or maybe even the courage to take the next step in your own heart health journey, don't keep it to yourself. Talk about it. Share your story. Start the conversation. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. Leave a review to help more people find these conversations and pass this episode along to someone who may need it. And if you're all ready to dive in deeper, join the conversation. Connect with me on social media or visit www.maryburrell.com for more resources, support, and ways to take action. Because when we speak up, we spark change, and the world needs to hear our voices. And remember, your heartbeat is more than just a rhythm, it's a message. What is yours saying?